Hey guys.
You good?
Yeah, I'm good.
What?
We only got like 2 reviews today.
So?
I don't know.
Bro, these guys talk to you on Discord all the time. You're fine.
Not all of them talk to me on Discord.
Okay, well, some of them. Okay. Hi, guys. We only have a couple reviews to go over before the chapter, so let's jump in.
Joe Clone's one of my only actual friends here.
Ha ha. Hi, Joe Clone. Ooh, this is a good start. I loved Ruby's strategy meeting. Pretty light on the action, but we got to see a lot of the quirks these applicants have. I don't know much about Mitsuha's speed, but Asuda's got some kind of Timberwolf-esque detective sight.
Timberwolf is a Legion of Superheroes character. Okay, oh man, I remember seeing the Legion of Superheroes. Like that was like one of the cartoons that came on. Like I want to say around the time like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles was ending.
Oh,
I want to say. So like I don't remember what slot it took up. Like if it took off like after Sonic went off the air or something. But I remember like I didn't get very far into it because we moved to Australia while it was still airing. So I only saw bits and pieces of it afterwards. So
I did not watch TV much at that time.
It's like so the premise is like the Legion of Superheroes in DC is like a group of superheroes from the future.
Okay.
And like every now and again they'll come and help out with stuff that's happening like in the present day. And in this iteration they like need Superman's help for something, but he's been dead for a while in the future, so they come back to the past and they're like, "Hey, we'll help train you like into the Superman you're supposed to be if you come out and help us out now." Interesting. So I was like, okay, that's an interesting premise. So I remember like I enjoyed it while I was watching it, and then like there's also like this clone of him, this like
of Superman.
Yeah, it's like he's like trying to be Superman, but like nobody likes him.
Oh,
as like because they're all like, what do we need this guy for? We already have like we have the Kal-El. So he has this whole inferiority complex going on.
Sounds like an interesting story.
Yeah. Like I remember, like I said, I enjoyed watching it. Like when it happened, I kind of am now sad that I didn't follow through with it, but I don't really think I had the means. But all that to say, I don't remember what Timberwolf does, honestly.
Yeah, literally at that time I did not watch TV because I had a lot of
I want to say this was like back, like I want to say the show ran from
2007.
No, I want to say the show ran from like 2008 to 2010.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah,
I'm not entirely sure. I don't really know how long it ran
Didn't
for.
watch a whole
They
lot
did some
of
really
that
interesting stuff with Brainiac. I do remember that.
Okay, see, and I don't even know who Brainiac is.
Okay.
Oh no, I know who Brainiac is. Sorry, that I misspoke. I know who that is. Okay.
No worries.
My bad. Okay. Seeing something or someone's history is pretty neat for crime scenes.
Yeah, I really wanted to explore powers that were like more under like Aizawa's category of power. Where it's like it's not great if you're going up against a robot.
It's almost like a Force Echo.
A little bit, yeah. I think I kind of got the idea from playing Jedi Fallen Order.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, guys, if you haven't played that game, oh my goodness,
great story.
It is like they could make that into a movie, and I would buy it all over again. It's such a fun game.
All right. Kudai saying that Stain basically has a point is probably one of the boldest things he's ever said in front of everyone.
I mean,
oh wait. Sorry, I jumped ahead.
No worries.
My bad. I'm sorry. Going back, I made this point on Discard, but calling Akabane Bloodshot still reminds me of the hero from Valiant comics of the same name. Bloodsnot insult was a funny bit though.
Yeah, he showed the character like Bloodshot like from the Valiant comics. Like he's like this big buff dude. I'm like, maybe Prometheus she got it from she got the idea of the name from that, but like physically resemble it, like there's no resemblance whatsoever.
We'd have to ask her where she got the inspiration for that character.
Yeah, like I mean to be fair, like Horikoshi gets his hero name ideas from like really old movies, like Eraserhead. That's the name of a movie. That's a movie.
Yeah, no.
Like back from the 40s, I want to say. Like
that long ago?
It's like a black and white movie.
Oh.
It's a really old movie.
Huh.
Like yeah, apparently like one of his things is like he's into really old movies.
Okay.
Also Spider-Man, but yeah. So so maybe that's kind of like where maybe that was the inspiration, but I honestly don't know. I've only talked to her a couple times. She's very nice. to lend me her characters, but I never really asked where she got the inspiration for Akabane from. But yeah.
All right. Sorry, now we get to this part. Kudai saying that Stain basically has a point is probably one of the boldest things he's ever said in front of everyone. I think it's fitting for him, especially coming from a police background where we're doing the right thing for the right reason is what...
Yeah, like, I really enjoyed writing that conversation because it's like, I think in today's day and age, especially, like, we find reasons to, like, empathize with the villain, like, a lot.
Yeah.
Like, that's a very, like...
But that's a very human thing.
Yeah, it is. But I honestly kind of want to say that, like, Marvel started it with Loki.
No,
like,
I mean, the
if they didn't
has been a thing for a long time.
Okay, the anti-hero is a hero who does too many bad things to be to achieve a good thing in order to be considered a traditional hero. Loki's not really an anti-hero. No, I don't think, because he's just in it for himself.
Yeah.
But, like, everybody can understand why he turned out the way that he did. So, like, even if Marvel didn't, like, start the trend, I want to say they definitely capitalized on it with Loki, because, like,
the likable villain.
The likable villain. Yeah, that's probably a better way to put it.
I think that also there's a lot of philosophy that's gone around in the last century, it seems like, just understanding, especially in the last 50 years in the psychology world, where, you know, it's that whole nature versus nurture thing. And, you know, if you understand someone well enough, you understand why they do the things that they do. And, you know, there's like a joke, and I don't completely agree with this, but there's this joke that I see a lot on social media where it's like people who are psychology majors, it's like when you understand the human brain so well that you can't even hate someone for doing something awful because you understand why they did it.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I get that. You know, and I'm not saying you should hate people for doing bad things. That's not what I'm saying at all. Yeah. But what I'm saying is, you know, it makes sense, especially in our culture and the way it's transformed. I think, to me, I don't know if this is a stretch, but, you know, the advent of, at least in the United States, of television broadcasting atrocities. So, like, it started with, you know, the whole, you know, World War II with the atomic bombs. Like, that is just mortifying, everything that happened between the bombings themselves, the fallout.
Why we dropped the bombs.
Yes, and that whole thing, you know, and then by the time we get to Vietnam, people are seeing videos and images of what we're doing and what war really looks like. Yeah. And people no longer have this romanticized picture of the hero versus the villain.
They don't have the hearsay.
They see what
the reality of what it is.
The pain that's caused, you know, whatever the motives are behind whatever fight it is, there's pain on both sides and how horrible it is. And so I think culturally we've moved away from that traditional hero is always right ideal. Yeah. Because people have put a much higher weight on empathy, which I think is important and it's good. Yeah. But it also can be taken to an extreme. But it is an interesting thing about our culture where we are promoting empathy even with characters who are evil, and maybe, you know, instead of saying they're evil, we say they're misunderstood.
Yeah, like, yeah, and that's something that, like, that's a line that I never want to cross, honestly, because it's like, no, evil is evil, good is good. Yes. It's like Stain is evil.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Like, his motivations may have started off good, but the minute that he started being like, all right, I'm gonna carve up people who don't agree with my mindset, is like, no, that's bad.
Okay.
It's like, I understand why you did it, but no, that's bad. You can't do that.
I'm having a brain fart too. Hands guy. His name.
Shigaraki.
Shigaraki is the same thing. You see him as a child and you're like, oh my gosh, this quirk is hellacious. It is horrible. Yep. But then you see how twisted it becomes. Yeah. And he's no longer the victim. He's becoming the antagonist. The one creating victims. He's the one creating the victims. Yeah.
But he still believes that he is the victim in all of it, is the problem.
So, because he's so deluded. Yep. And so it's just, you know, that line between, you know, doing the wrong thing because you are a victim, or doing the wrong thing because
you want other people to be victims. You want to
victimize others. Yes. And so, and it's like, and I think
that's trying to force empathy on others. Yeah. In a twisted way, it's like it's trying to force others.
Well, it's forcing your own form of justice.
Yeah, well, it's like but the way that they think about it is like they're trying to force other people to empathize with them. It's like, oh, if you end up as messed up as I am, then you'll understand why I did this. Exactly. Like, no, that's not okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. That's why it's important, you know, as human beings for us to value right and wrong and what true justice looks like. And that's a whole other tangent I could get on. So I won't go too far into that. But yeah, I mean, I think that is especially like in literary themes that are coming up and in a lot of the entertainment industry is really dabbling in that, like, where is that line between good and evil and loving your enemy and loving a person who's done something horribly wrong. Yeah. Or understanding them at the very least. So. Yeah. Yeah. So that's a really good point, my dude. Yep. All right. So Shinzo's quirk is debuted, and it's just as creepy and effective as ever. I still like him a lot, though, especially after this arc in the original show. This will be fun to see. See you next. Hey, true what now? Is that the blue chakra power?
So I didn't know Maki at the end of last chapter where Kurdai almost spoiled something, and I'm saying almost spoiled with quotation marks because you guys can't see me. So yeah, I gave them a little bit of a hint as to what what the next chakra power might be called. Gotcha. But I mean, is it the blue chakra? Of course I know, but I'm not going to tell you guys.
And Shinzo, it's so funny. It's interesting that you describe Shinzo as creepy because I never really got the creepy vibe off of him.
Like, I feel like other people... No, I don't know, because like other people like in the show they're kind of like, oh man, that's a great villain power. That'd be kind of like a creepy villain power. And he's just like, guys, I don't want to be a villain. He's like, why do you keep telling me that? I don't want to be a villain.
Yeah, you know, it makes for a really interesting.
Yeah.
So I
quite enjoy his character. I think it's a great take on like. I'm trying to think of a classic example of like someone who was supposed to be the villain, but they just wanted to be the hero. Mm-hmm. I can't think of a classic. I can't think of a classic for that. Like,
oh gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Give me a minute.
Like, who's the writer?
No, hold on. Something. So you said, what was it? You said someone who's meant to be the villain,
but they just want to be the hero.
Want to be the hero.
Yeah.
Meant to be is the problematic part because there's plenty
or like it seems like things line up for them to be the villain.
Okay, the Hulk.
Okay, yeah, that's a good example.
Where it's another one.
Like where circumstances and even a little bit
different.
King Kong.
Because depending on, there's so many different iterations of
I was
King
like,
Kong.
yeah, there's
so many different iterations, but then when you have like King Kong versus Godzilla, it's like obviously Godzilla's bad, and they're only throwing King Kong in there. Anyway, okay. I don't know. There's a few of those, but I see what you mean where it's in a much less dramatic way.
Yeah,
you know,
it's not like world-ending catastrophe if the sky ends up being the bad guy, but it's like, it's. I really like that idea that it's like by all circumstances circumstances is a word to use.
All circumstances point toward that person turning into the villain. But again, we get that nature versus nurture thing going on.
Yeah.
You know, so
his nature. Well, I mean, in this case, like his nature is to be a hero, and he just rebels against against like his entire nurture system, where everybody's like, "Oh man, you make a great villain." And he's just like, "Why would you? Why would you tell me that?" Yeah, obviously, I don't know what his home life is like, but yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but.
All right, thank you, Joe Clone.
Thank you for your review.
And Silly Kita, maybe it's just because I'm impatient to see Kudai beat the stuffing out of Monoma, but I'm mostly drawing a blank for what to say in this chapter. Interesting, because you have quite a long review, sir.
I was going to say, you got like 4 or 5 paragraphs that you say after that.
That's okay. He's a writer. He's, you know, we tend to be a little verbose. I will say that the quirks shown by team applicant were very interesting. I did like how we got a look at the student who could have been in the hero course if not for a case of plain old bad luck. And another student like Aizawa and Shinzo whose quirks don't do so well against the robots and
so what we were saying earlier.
Yeah. Isn't Akabane the name of the doctor who saved Kudai's life? Bingo,
Yep.
you
Bingo.
got it. I'm guessing that girl is related to him somehow, but I'm sure you'll get around to that whenever it suits the story. Her quirk seems like it could have easily allowed her into the hero course, so I'm interested to see why she didn't make it in. I mean, it seems like someone like her should have done better against robots than someone like Hagakure, whose power is literally just being invisible. Now that I think about it, I kind of want to see how she made it into the hero course. That's a good point.
Yeah, I want to, like, how did she take out, like, did she just, like, trick them into running into each other and then they blew up? Like, I really want to know, how did she get into the hero course? Because she wasn't a recommendation student.
That is a good question.
I'm like, I now understand that her quirk is, like...
She could have set traps or short-circuited them or something.
Yeah, she could have snuck up on them.
And they wouldn't
like,
be able to sense her somehow.
Yeah, because, like, I understand that her quirk is, like, not actually being invisible. It's like she bends light around herself.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, she and Aoyama at one point, like, she trains so that, like, if he fires a laser at her, like, she can like
bounce it off.
She can she has the ability to, like, redirect the laser how she wants.
Oh.
Like, it doesn't just, like, splash off against, like, she can, like, use her ability to, like, redirect it.
Oh.
Like, so it doesn't just splash, like, it goes as a focus beam, like, somewhere else. Nice. So she acts like a mirror to it.
I've always been so interested by her character, and I'm really hoping that we get more in this next season because of some of the spoilers I've had from the manga, and I won't say anything about that right now. But I'm hopeful that we will have more to do with her in this next arc.
Yeah, I hope we get... Yeah.
Which is coming out soon.
Yeah. I mean, the season started, but I'm not watching it till dub comes out. Where's my dub? Where's my dub, Crunchyroll?
See, I would watch the Japanese, but this guy won't, so... And I can't watch it without him because he'll be salty, so...
I hope he's so salty.
He would. Okay, whatever. Anyway,
but yes, to answer your question, Akabane is the name of the doctor who saved Kudai's life. There's definitely a relation. I can go ahead and say, yeah, that'll be answered later in this chapter, so you have that to look forward to.
Cool. All right, I'll continue. Shinzo seems like he's about to bite off more than he can chew. Oh, that chair is so loud. Sorry, it's driving me crazy. Don't get me wrong, capturing Yang and RWBY is hella impressive, but this is Team RWBY we're talking about here. Even if the Super Saiyan is going to the cell, they still have a cat girl who's ninjutsu would make Naruto proud. That's pretty good. Snow White's huffy cousin who can actually back up all her attitude. And, pending the right circumstances, the love child of Poison Ivy and Kid Flash. Those are some pretty solid descriptions there, dude. All right. I admit I'm not entirely sure as to why I made that specific parallel for RWBY. But my point still stands. No,
those were great, dude.
They work. If Team RWBY doesn't win, I will genuinely be shocked. I know you'll do it in a way that makes sense, should it occur, but I'm just calling it now that USA is taking home the gold. Yeah. Quick note, I was surprised to see Kudai bring up the stain the way he did, but the context made perfect sense. I also thought it was kind of nice of him to make sure that he wasn't about to trigger Ida while he made his point. It was also
he's not gonna bring that up. Yeah, he's not gonna bring it like I remember Ida like being okay with someone bringing up a point about stain like in the and it was in the show, but like. And even if Kudai saw that, he would just he's like I don't want to cause any more fights that I don't need to be a part I don't need to be a part of. And he's trying to be considerate. He's trying to be considerate of Ida's feelings.
I think because he's become more talkative with people that he knows, we forget that he's naturally more of a thoughtful introvert. So he's become more outgoing.
He's comfortable with all these people.
Yeah, so he's more outgoing with them.
Yeah, but outgoing isn't the right. I wouldn't say that outgoing is the right term because he's comfortable with these people. I feel like outgoing applies to mostly to people that it's like you don't know them. So he's not going to strike up a conversation with someone on the street because he likes the shirt that they're wearing.
Yeah, I guess that was the wrong word for me because as an introvert, I can be so obnoxious with the people that I'm comfortable with. And I'm a lot more comfortable saying it like it is. And I'm not shy.
Yeah.
I'm not shy. I can talk to people if I need to talk to people, but that's not what comes natural to me.
Yeah.
I just would rather not.
Because he never has a problem holding the conversation if somebody else starts the conversation. Mm-hmm. He's just not. He's usually not the one to start it.
Yeah, and that's what it is to be. I mean, at least the way I am.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think we forget sometimes that he is pretty thoughtful, and he unlike many of Joe's OCs, he's the kind who thinks before he speaks. Usually. You know, as long as
he's a teenage boy, he's gonna spout some stuff every now and again.
Yeah, but you know, that's a good point though. All right. It was also a good sidebar to have the subject of how to proceed as heroes in the changing society that they now live in. Neither Todoroki nor Kurai are really wrong per se, but it's interesting to see the competing ideals for how to achieve the same goal.
Do you remember the different points that they were making?
Remind me.
Kurai was kind of advocating for, like, you know, maybe we should start bringing hero teams back, and Todoroki's like, well, how do you know if we're going to make a good hero team if you don't excel as an individual first?
Yeah. I hope we get to see more conversations like that as the story continues. Really great fleshing out of the characters there.
Thank you.
That's all I got for today, but if that Omaki is anything to go by, I get the feeling that we'll be seeing new chakra power manifesting sometime soon, which makes me very excited. Perhaps it's a move that Kurai is saving just for Monoma? Please let that be the case. I look forward to the next installment. Happy writing to you, Mataris.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm not gonna spoil it. I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it. Will we be getting a new chakra power soon? I mean, probably, but
okay, play the chapter.
All right, fine. Let me have my fun. It's fun for me taunting these guys.
You love torturing them.
Yes, it's funny.
Okay, let's go.
All right, I'll be back soon.
From the moment I reached the other side, I could not hide from the great divide. I can't turn back time, I'm a soul what's mine. Get back what I lost, no matter the cost. Is there no way home? Is there no way home?
Pendulum. Damn, these guys have thought things out. Kurai mused as they watched the supplicate team move out to enact the next part of their plan. They're leaving almost nothing to chance. Almost nothing? Mina repeated. Well, they're sending Asuto with Yang to make sure that she gets to the prison, which makes sense given that he's the least combat-oriented of the bunch, Izuku answered before Kurai could. But they are gambling with Shinzo's control over Rose if what Mr. Aizawa said about his quirk is correct. They just have to hit RWBY, right? Ochako questioned, to which both boys nodded, having questioned their teacher about their prospective peers' abilities. The problem is she's so fast it'll be hard for them to hit her, her boyfriend pointed out. And they'll have to deal with the fact that Shinzo can brainwash them too, since they don't know how his quirk functions. You're underestimating our friends, Kurai countered, causing the others' gaze to turn back to him. Belladonna's told me about the kind of combat training they do in the States. It's a lot more competitive than what we do here. This isn't competitive enough? Mina grinned as she made a wide gesture to indicate their surroundings. They apparently have class tournaments once a month, and once a week they train against each other in battle, all with live rounds, mind you, he said with a raised eyebrow. What, live rounds as in actual bullets? Mina gasped. Like metal ones? Yep. How do they do that without killing each other? Even they're not that good. They have a professor there who can infuse a force field around up to 10 individuals for an hour, Kurai recalled aloud. They're pretty much impenetrable as long as the student is conscious, but each time the shield is hit, it drains their stamina. Too much force, and the things shatter, which has apparently happened a few times with Zhao Long. That's not really surprising, Ochako giggled. So instead of a healer, they have someone who prevents any actual harm to begin with, Izuku murmured, his eyes a bit distant as he did. Interesting. Before he could wander too far down that rabbit hole, Kurai said, in any case, the girls have not only a lot of combat experience against other people, but against each other too. Even if it comes to them fighting Rose, I'm sure they'll figure something out. Let's hope so, Mina said as she pointed up at the screen, because that Shinzo guy looks like he's not planning to mess around. It's been too long. Weiss frowned, but she knew that Blake was right. RWBY should have been back with a captive long before they were. However, when they had arrived at their home base to deposit their prisoner, they were both surprised to find it empty, with their team leader nowhere to be seen. Not only that, but Yang was also missing. You don't think that she got captured, do you? She finally asked her partner, who shrugged in response. It's starting to look that way, no matter how improbable it seems, Blake replied. Even if they're out in the field somewhere, we should operate under the assumption that we're on our own from here on out. Agreed. Weiss muttered as they began to walk away from their base. Our biggest issue is still that we have no idea what our enemy's powers are. If they've managed to capture Yang or RWBY, they're even more dangerous than we gave them credit for. Blake replied as she assumed a thoughtful look. We haven't heard any big explosions since the match began. So whatever they can do, it's likely that they're banking on stealth and catching us off guard to make it work. So we'll have to be ready to flip the tables the second they make an appearance. The furrow in Weiss's brow deepened before she added, I finally got that one move down, but do you have anything else that could help in the case of an ambush? Before Blake could give an answer, both girls unsheathed their blades as they heard a familiar rush of wind coming right at them from further up the field. Is that RWBY? The raven-haired heroine asked as she narrowed her eyes at the oncoming storm. If it is, she probably needs backup, Weiss replied as the air around her began to cool off rapidly. Get ready. Blake made no reply, but she did leap up onto a streetlight in order to get a better vantage point on whoever that might be chasing their friend, while Weiss prepared for a more direct counterattack. What do you see? Weiss, get out of there! Without hesitation, the regal heroine used a hex to launch herself skyward and then another to get her up on a nearby rooftop, just in time for RWBY to tear through the spot where she had been a moment ago. What was... She didn't have any pursuers, so I figured that one of us had to be the target. Blake interrupted as they watched their teammates skid to a stop, cracking the pavement beneath her feet as she halted her massive momentum. To the younger girl, she shouted, RWBY, what are you doing? In response, RWBY unslung her scythe and took aim at Blake with a stony expression on her face. Both Blake and Weiss paled before a rubber bullet tore through the Shadow Heroine's clone, forcing it to dissipate while the girl herself dropped down to the street. She's not herself, Weiss shouted as she rushed forward, her rapier describing circles in the air as she moved with the speed of her hexes. One of those guys must have a hypnotism quirk that's controlling her. Who did she go after again? That'd be me, said Shinzo as he walked up the street from the same direction that RWBY had initially come from, his face hidden behind his mask. As he maintained a measured pace, he called out, All right, Rose, get over here. I need a meat shield. Without a second of hesitation, RWBY zoomed over to stand between him and the other girls, much to their frustration. Before they could try and circle him, Shinzo added, I wouldn't try anything if I were you. After all, you don't know how to undo my brainwashing. And if you did take me down before you do, who knows what'll happen to your little friend. What a cheap move, Weiss grumbled under her breath. Shinzo flicked his eyes up toward her while he turned a knob on the side of his mask. He turned away just in time for her to hear RWBY say, Don't try to fight him, Schnee. He's already got you along. Weiss went to yell at her teammate to snap out of it, but just before she did, she silenced herself and switched to hold her rapier in reverse. With an angry scowl, she jammed the blade into the roof that she stood on, sending her power surging to the pure white hex that she had conjured, which spanned well over the square footage of the structure. The air's temperature dropped across the entire city block, causing everyone but Weiss herself to shiver as a massive figure began to rise up the sigil, crumbling the building beneath them with a mere touch. The Colossus soon showed itself clearly by shrugging off the rubble of the building it had stood on, revealing an ice golem armed with a massive sword and thick armor that would have held up to a beatdown from the likes of Ryukyu in her dragon form. Ultimate move! Summoning Armagigas! Weiss was panting as she looked down at Shinzo from her creation's shoulder, who suddenly looked a lot less sure of himself. I don't know where you get off on trying to use RWBY's voice as your own, but the next time you imitate someone, make sure you know how they address their companions, she called down haughtily. Now, release my friend from your control, or I'll ice you in this entire complex to trap your enemies. And before you get any bright ideas about trying to take down my giant, allow me to inform you that you'll need flames on par with Endeavor's Hellfire before you'll have a chance at melting him, and he'll keep going even after I've been knocked unconscious. Shinzo was rendered speechless. He had been operating under the assumption that Weiss was the weakest member of the team, and even if he couldn't outsmart her, which he had intended to do so with his persona cords as support item, he could have Akabane restrain her once she got in close enough. Now, though, he knew that none of his teammates had the skill set needed to get close enough to the American girl to restrain her. Forget trying to take on her golem. He only had one option in this scenario. Turning to RWBY, he ordered, Block her line of sight and throw the snowman off balance with your quirk. Make a tornado around them. He was in a doubly bad spot now that his gambit to utilize the girl's voice had failed. He doubted that Weiss had figured out the specifics of his quirk. After all, she had spoken to him after summoning her golem, even if he had been too startled to take advantage of it. But she would be even more cautious in approaching him if they came face to face again. I was too quick to play that card. He fumed as he watched RWBY begin her assault on the giant, quickly losing sight of the icy figures in the storm of rose petals and rushing winds. Meanwhile, Akabane tried to take advantage of Blake's distraction with Weiss's situation by pinning her down with a pair of blood crystals, but the other girl's quirk had allowed her to evade harm once again. Blake was quickly on the counteroffensive, using both her sword and sheath to drive her opponent away from the mounting battle with a stony expression which almost matched that of Shinzo's brainwashing victims. She was holding her own by using crystallized blood to create spiked knuckle dusters with her gauntlets, which were durable enough to stave off her opponent's sharper weapons. "You've been trained to fight." Blake's words were phrased as a statement, not a question, but Akabane didn't feel like answering either way. As the shadowy heroine batted away a swift jab to her midsection, she added, "You should have been in the hero course with skills like yours. Why lower yourself to the general studies?" Akabane's eyes narrowed before she bared her teeth and growled out, "That's none of your business!" This was followed by a 3-punch combo that cut Blake's left knuckles and culminated with a savage sidekick that nearly knocked her down, though she was able to substitute a clone in time to avoid any real damage. Like Yang before her, she was surprised by the seemingly quiet girl's sudden viciousness. However, she knew that she had bigger things to worry about when she felt the cold air around her begin to shudder, and she knew what was coming next. To her opponent, she said, "If you want to make it into the hero course, you can't let any inhibitions hold you back. You'll be playing catch-up with my friends, and speaking from personal experience, it's not an easy thing to do." Then she leaped up high, conjuring 2 clones beside her as she did, which then cupped their hands beneath her feet and launched her up even higher, just out of Akabane's reach. "Not so fast!" the hemophiliac girl called as she aimed both fists at Blake. "Crimson Hail!" Nearly 36 blood crystals shot out of her gauntlets at Blake, who knew that even with her quirk, there was no way she would be able to avoid such a widespread attack. Fortunately, thanks to her innate sense of timing and reflexes, she wouldn't have to. Just as she began to lose momentum, Weiss's golem swept its huge sword right beneath her, turning the air around them bone-chillingly cold, and intercepting the bloody projectiles. Blake landed on the flat of the massive blade and immediately started to run up its length, heading for Weiss, who was waving her over. She knew that if she stayed still for even a moment, the cold would lock her in place, and then Weiss would have to dispel the giant. As it was, frost began to coat her clothes as she ran, even as the sword carved a huge gash in the city block, leaving massive ice crystals in its wake. "Going a little overboard, aren't you?" she panted as she came to a stop on the shoulder next to Weiss, who shrugged non-apologetically. "We'll lose points for this." "I am not losing to a group of half-trained wannabes," the icy girl replied stubbornly as the golem completed its lumbering stroke, leaving both Shinzo and Akabane in a frigid position of frozen moisture. "They may have garnered the teacher's attention with their potential, but I haven't worked as hard as I have to be upstaged by potential alone." Deciding not to press the subject of the collateral damage any further, Blake decided to ask, "Where's RWBY? Last I saw, she was trying to make a tornado around you." Down here." Both girls looked down to see their teammate shivering violently next to the golem's right foot, her eyes looking up at them pleadingly. "Please, let me out. So cold." "Sorry, RWBY, but you can't be trusted given the circumstances," Rice replied a little archly. "For all we know, he could still be controlling you." "He's not," the younger girl whined. "When he got me, I couldn't talk at all." Weiss and Blake exchanged a look before the white-themed heroine shrugged and said, "If you think it's worth the risk, go cut her loose. You'd be better suited for getting out of a close-quarters ambush." True. With that, Blake leaped down and held her sword at the ready, immediately slashing through the ice, imprisoning her friend before she leaped away, senses on high alert for any sign of hostility from the other girl. When all RWBY did was start rubbing her arms rapidly to try and generate friction, she asked her, "You okay?" "That was cold, even for her," the younger girl complained. "I just wish I knew how he did that to me." "How'd you snap out of it?" Blake asked as she converted her sword into its pistol form. "I don't really remember anything after talking to him until Weiss's statue stabbed the ground and I tripped up, which got me to hit the wall." As she spoke, RWBY indicated a nearby structure which had been partially demolished by the arse damage. "Right after that, I got frozen." "So he probably lost his concentration when she started her attack, or the impact itself is what set you free," Blake mused as she started to head toward the frozen students. "Well, whatever the case is, we should get him back to the jail, assuming Weiss didn't just smash it." RWBY giggled at that before saying, "Weiss may hate to lose, but she wouldn't do anything to endanger us winning." Her expression became more serious as they drew nearer to Shinzo, who was looking a little blue as he shivered in the ice. "Whatever you do, don't talk to him," she warned her teammate. "I'm not 100% on this, but I think something about talking to him is what allows him to control people." "Got it." The two girls quickly released their captives from the ice, bound them, and then had RWBY use her speed to throw them both into prison. Shinzo kept talking the whole time, asking them questions, insulting them, doing anything he could to get a reaction out of them, all to no avail. While this was happening, Weiss released her golem and allowed it to fade into a flurry of snow before joining her friends. After comparing notes on their opponents' fighting styles, they agreed that Shinzo probably did control people by getting them to talk. That explains why he imitated your voice, Weiss recalled as she and the others began to head back out into the field in search of the last student. He probably thought I'd try to talk you out of his brainwashing. How'd you know it wasn't me talking? Ruby then asked. He called Yang and I by our surnames, the regal heroine snorted. He was good, I give him that, but I wasn't about to fall for it after such a glaring mistake. Good thing you're so smart, Ruby grinned at her teammate. Sorry I got tricked so easily. This is what training is for, Blake shrugged before Weiss could make a reply. This is a learning opportunity. Now you know to be more cautious when engaging in banter with an enemy who you don't know anything about. Banter with an enemy in general seems pretty pointless to me, Weiss quipped. Ah, but it's half the fun of the job. Ruby giggled. Growing somber again, she added, Seriously, thank you guys. I almost ruined our chances at winning because I was too overconfident, even though I was one of the ones saying we should be careful. I'm glad you have my back. We always do, Weiss replied with a genuinely warm smile that the other two couldn't help but reciprocate. After all, it wasn't every day they got to see her softer side. They never found Asuna, but because they had imprisoned 3 opponents as opposed to their 1 captured teammate, they were declared the winners of the match. The outcome hardly surprised any of the other participants, but it had been a closer call than many of them would have expected. I'd let Akabane and Shinzo in at the very least, Kurai said in an aside to his friends once the screens went to display the match results. He's clever, and even if he relies on his quirk a little too much, and she's got the drive that people like us need to succeed. Given their lack of experience, I'd say they did incredibly well against our classmates, Ida agreed. Had they been in the hero course from the beginning, I imagine things might have turned out very differently. I certainly can't remember any of us, other than Hikari being able to back Shinny into a corner like that during our combat practices, Todoroki added with a nod of his own. It seems Bakugo is right. She's more capable than she lets on most of the time. That's probably the idea, Izuku commented as he finished jotting down his notes. She doesn't look very strong, and she plays on people's assumption about her. It's a really good strategy. For now, Kurdai pointed out. When the others looked a question at him, he elaborated. Once we all go pro, she won't be able to play that card for very long. Once people, villains, start to hear about her, they'll think twice before underestimating her strength. She won't be able to take them by surprise forever. Everyone here knows you need to have more than one trick to be a real pro Saiyaman. The boys all looked over to see Bakugo leaning on the railing, looking up at the clouds as if he hadn't a care in the world. You saw the same thing I did. You really think she's going to stop coming up with ways to one-up all the idiot villains out there? If you don't watch it, she'll end up with more ultimate moves than your stupid quirk gives you. Once again, the boys were all surprised to hear him speak well of Weiss, but given his earlier outburst against Kaminari, none of them decided to comment on the matter. Even so, Kurai couldn't keep a slight grin off his face, as he had the thought that maybe their electric-themed friend might have been closer to the truth than he had realized. Once all the students, the ones who were well enough to attend anyway, had regathered at the starting area, Aizawa and Vlad King addressed the supplicant team to review their work. All of you have a lot of improvements you need to make, Class A's teacher said bluntly, causing Akabane and Asada to flinch, while Shinzo remained stone-faced. All 3 of you placed too much faith in Shinzo's ability to control his opponents, and that more than anything caused your team to fail. If you want to succeed as a hero, you need to rely on more than just your powers. Akabane, you're strong, but you take too long to get motivated in a fight, Vlad added, causing the girl's shoulders to slump further. Getting angry isn't a good enough reason to make a fist. If you want to become a hero, you can't wait until you're backed into a corner to start hitting back. Yes, sir, she mumbled dejectedly. Asada, you were not nearly proactive enough in your encounters. Aizawa deadpanned, causing the boy to gulp nervously. Your quirk is very useful for gathering information, yes, but that cannot be your only contribution in the field. Had you moved in to assist Akabane in her fight with Belladonna, there is a very real possibility you could have blindsided her and claimed a victory. I understand, sir. The boy answered in a similar tone to the girl next to him. Shinzo, you did very well in leading the others in this battle, and capitalizing on the use of your quirk, Vlad told the stoic boy. Given your lack of experience, it should be noticed how well you kept your head in the situation presented to you, even when faced with overwhelming odds. That being said, you still rely too heavily on your quirk, Aizawa cut in. You will only be able to catch people off guard with that so many times before they start to catch on. You chose poor timing to make use of your support item, and it gave your opponent a vital clue as to how they should counter you. Shinzo said nothing, but his eyes lowered, and the others thought that he looked rather disappointed in himself, more than either of the teachers could be. Seeing this, Vlad and Aizawa exchanged a look before the scraggly teacher stepped forward and said, As we told you before, you have a lot to work on, and that is because you have shown that you are willing to put in the effort to develop the talents you've been born with. So starting second year, you three will be joining the hero course, provided you don't slack off in your other classes in the meantime. The three students all looked dumbstruck for a moment before Akabane and Asada exchanged huge smiles and an excited high five. Shinzo continued to look stunned for a good few seconds longer before he turned directly toward Aizawa and simply said, "Thank you, sir."
Don't thank him yet.
Vlad said warningly.
My class is no cakewalk. You'd better believe you're going to be wishing you'd stayed in general studies at some point or another.
Shinzo met his fierce gaze with a steely one to match it before replying, "No, sir. I will never regret my choice." After critiquing the work of Team RWBY, Yang was particularly chewed out for not taking note of her surroundings, while Weiss was scolded for causing so much collateral damage. The teachers told everyone to remain on standby while they prepared the next area for battle. They took this time to congratulate their new peers, during which Mina practically dragged Kurai by his robotic limb to meet Akabane, seeing that he needed to be polite and congratulate the other students, an excuse that he did not buy for a second. "You just want to know how I might know her," he grumbled as he was forced to go along with her. She ignored him until they were close enough to talk to Akabane in a casual manner. "Congratulations on making it into the hero course," the pink girl said cheerily as she shook hands with the other girl, who had taken off her support item and stuffed a piece of tissue back into her bloodied nose. "I gotta say, I never would have guessed that you'd be the one to take down Xiaolong." "That makes two of us," Akabane chuckled a little hoarsely. "But really, it was Shinzo who made the capture. I just held her off until he could arrive to help." "As someone who's been on the receiving end of some of her punches, I can say you're a lot tougher than you give yourself credit for," Kurai said as he held out his hand to shake hers. "You're on your way to being one of the greats, Akabane." The girl reddened a little and scratched at the back of her neck with her free hand as she took the offered grip. "That means a lot, coming from you," she said shyly, which just confused both Kurai and Mina. Sorry, do you guys know each other?" Mina asked before Kurai could pose the question. At least this way he wouldn't have to outright admit that he didn't remember the girl, provided that they did know each other from somewhere. Oh, sorry." Akabane laughed nervously as she released his hand and stepped back a half pace. "No, we haven't met before. I just really admire you, Hikari." Now Mina and Kurai were exchanging an even more confused look, and to be honest, the boy wasn't sure that he was comfortable with the territory this seemed to be wandering towards. However, having apparently sensed the growing awkwardness, Akabane hurried to say, Not like what you're thinking." Her face was nearly as red as her bangs as she rushed to explain. "I heard about what happened when you guys fought at the USJ, and your quirk nearly got you killed because of it. I really respect you because even though you have a quirk that could be hazardous to your health, you decided to continue pursuing your dream to be a hero, unlike me." "Well, how do you mean?" he asked, feeling a little better now that it seemed the girl wasn't enamored with him like he had begun to fear. "My quirk doesn't replace my blood when it's outside my body," Akabane explained. "If I lose too much blood, well, it's similar to me just bleeding out. It's hard to keep track of how much blood I'm using when I fight, so it's kind of dangerous for me to use it, which is why my dad was worried about me wanting to be a hero. But after he met you, he seemed to realize that maybe my quirk wasn't as dangerous to my well-being as giving up on my dreams could be. So since then, he's been more supportive of my goal to become a hero." "Your dad?" Kurai inquired, feeling even more confused than before. "I don't know anyone named Akabane. I don't think?" The girl, instead of being insulted, chuckled a little bit before replying, "Given how rough a shape you must have been in when you first met him, I guess it's not a surprise you don't remember him. But he's the guy who saved your life after that." Here she pointed at Kurai's right arm, or to be more specific, the spot where his flesh transformed into metal. Suddenly, Kurai realized why the girl seemed so familiar to him, and yet he had been unable to place it. Her eyes were the same color and shape as the man who had operated on him after he'd been brought back from the brink of death, and the red bangs on her head also matched his crimson hair. "I remember him now," he said, his eyes a little wide in surprise. "He talked about you after I woke up for the first time." "Dude!" Mina said with mock exasperation. "Talk about rude, not remembering the guy who saved your life. If you'll recall, I was still making my way out of a mini-coma that was one pit stop away from death's door," he quipped dryly. "Forgive me for forgetting my good manners at the baggage terminal." In response, she swatted his arm, and immediately bit back a curse as her flesh encountered dense metal beneath the orange fabric of his costume. This made her boyfriend snort with laughter as he managed to get out, "Not so funny when it happens to you, is it?" "It's never been funny. It's kind of funny." He then held her at arm's length as she tried to get in a solid smack on his other side, where there was no danger of being injured by his prosthetic. To Akabane, he said, "Well, I know it's probably a bit late to be saying this, but please send your father my regards when you next talk to him. I'll be looking forward to having you as a peer, and as a rival." Akabane snorted. I appreciate the encouragement, but after seeing your fight in Fukuoka, I doubt you have any rivals here. Only if you keep up that attitude. He grinned at her even as Mina gave up and chose to sag on his arm like a limp noodle with a pouting expression. Congratulations again, Akabane. Thanks, Hikari. The following matches passed on a blur for Kurai. Even though the momentum leading to his friend's victory swung like a pendulum between the two classes, he was happy to see how much his friends had been improving for the last few months. The first match was cut a little close by Kiroshima's team, but they managed to secure a 4-2 win, which was followed by a loss on Yairozu's team 1-4. Ieda's group was unable to best their opponents, but they didn't lose either, with both teams ending the match with a single prisoner. In spite of the result, Kurai took time to congratulate Ida on his improved Recipro move after he came back from the nurse's office, as well as praised Todoroki for his increased resilience to his own flames. Following this was an absolute annihilation of Class B's fourth team by Bakugo, Jiro, Sato, and Sero, with the explosive hero in training showing a surprising amount of cooperation and leadership that impressed Kurai and many of the others alongside him. Since when was he a team player? The cyborg teen couldn't help but ask aloud. He always wanted to win, and protecting others was the best way to do that. Izuku answered him with a light smile. Kachan's always been obsessed with winning. Now he's just learning that claiming an absolute victory doesn't mean leaving all of his classmates in the dust. Huh, Kurai chuckled. Now I've seen everything. As he rubbed the spot on his arm where flesh fused with metal, he added in a lower tone, I guess this was worth it after all. Mina looked sadly at his arm before she forced a smile into her face and gripped the artificial appendage, drawing his attention back to her dark eyes. I still think the price was too high, she whispered, but I'm glad that the most is being made out of it. You and me both, sweetheart. You doing okay? Ochako asked as she and Izuku moved to stand in front of their teammates. She hadn't heard what they were saying, but the looks on their faces said enough to let them know they weren't continuing in the shameless flirting they had been doing all day. I'm good, Kurai assured them quickly. Adding a slightly more evil smile to his expression, he added, It's payback time. As he said this, he directed his gaze across the waiting area toward Monoma, who was talking in lowered tones with his teammates, none of whom were looking too confident in their chances of victory. Objectively, Mina couldn't blame them. Sure, they had some decent powers on their team, and against most opponents, Monoma's quirk would be a disconcerting one to go up against. After all, how often did people have to fight back against exact replicas of their own abilities? On a more personal level, she was looking forward to seeing just what Kurai would do once he had Monoma in his sights on the battlefield. Before either teams could move out, Aizawa approached Kurai's group and singled him out for a more private discussion. Once they were away from everyone else, the teacher turned to look at his student with a steely gaze before saying, You won't be within range of my quirk, so I won't be able to physically stop the match at any given time. Don't take that as permission to do whatever you want. Kurai kept his features composed as he returned his instructor's gaze evenly and replied, I won't lie to you, sir. There's some catharsis to be had on my end for the crap he put me through. This is going to be something of a grudge match. That said, I will promise you that I won't cause any permanent damage. Aizawa regarded him silently for a moment before he nodded behind his scarf and said, Given the level of restraint you've shown since your father's crime was revealed to the public, as well as your handling of the situation with your uncle's killer, I'm willing to trust you. Don't violate that. My trust isn't easily won. I'm well aware. Kurai chuckled briefly. He then bowed to his teacher and said, Thank you, sir. I'll see to it that your trust in me is not misplaced. Aizawa merely grunted and led his charge back to the observation deck, where Monoma's team had already begun to head out. As he rejoined his own group, he was intrigued when the majority of his classmates gathered around on either side of them, all of them wearing knowing smiles as they did. Kick his ass, man, Kaminari told them. We're all rooting for you, Ojiro said with a thumbs up. May good fortune and the gods of vengeance smile upon you, Tokoyami murmured. Try not to get the others caught up in the crossfire, yeah? Jiro grinned as she gave him a fist bump. Everyone fell quiet when Bakugo stepped up with a scowl on his face and his arms crossed. Then he simply said, Kill him, Saiyaman. Done. Kurai smirked as he passed his classmate by, who then walked out toward the display screen. Just before they hit the stairs, however, the group had one more surprise waiting for them. Hey, Hikari, Kendo called out, causing the quartet to halt in place as they looked over their shoulders to see Class B's representative giving him a charming smile and a giant thumbs up. I'm not exactly rooting for your team to win, but, well, I suppose I can cheer for you, so good luck. This was followed by all of her classmates adding their voices of approval for the young hero, who felt touched by their show of support. Thanks, you guys, he called once Mina tugged on his arm and reminded him they needed to get moving. Once this is over, let's celebrate all our hard work, yeah? You got it, Kendo nodded. Now show us what you're made of, Kai. Yes, ma'am.
Even if they doubt me, push me where I stand, I will say it proudly, so you know who I am. There is something that sleeps within you, listen close. You will soon know. Every door that is open for you, one is closed. Soon you will know what's on the other side.
That fight pretty much went how people thought it was gonna go. Gonna go.
Yeah, so we open and
Yeah, there honestly there was no way that I could write that fight where Team RWBY was conceivably going to lose.
yeah.
Like,
But, you know, other guys, they put up a good fight.
I would say so, yeah.
I enjoyed, you know, of course, Weiss creating her golem and Blake running down the blade and be like, I'm freezing, you know, trying not to freeze.
She's just like, are you sure you're not going overboard here? Weiss is just like, I am not losing. Yep.
Yeah, and of course she got in trouble for slicing some, you know, some block in half.
Wrecking a block and a half.
So in a real fight that wouldn't have been possible. Is our pug? Hold on.
Is our pug just choking on her own tongue right now?
Hold on a favor. Help.
Yeah, our fun fact: if you own a pug, they will like sometimes choke on their own tongues. So you have to like massage the bottom of their throat to like dislodge the tongue so that they can breathe again.
Yeah, she's okay. She's alive.
Yeah. She's
no
fine.
need to be alarmed.
Yeah. Yep.
She's just, you know, suffering and trying to live like all pugs. She's a rescue, I promise. We didn't get her from a breeder.
Yep.
But she's amazing. Anyway, moving on. Sorry.
Yeah. No, we got Bakugo coming in. Bakugo's coming in and playing defense for a few different people this chapter. It's kind of.
I'm curious to see how people are feeling about this strange turn of events.
Yep. I mean, like, I feel like this was just kind of where he was at this point, because like in this chapter, you know, he like this was the episode where he like, or episodes where he just went and smoked Team B because he finally figured out how to be a team player. And
which is great character development.
Yep,
I'm happy for that.
Good for him.
Like, it's so funny because at the beginning of this story, never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would enjoy Bakugo's character.
Yeah, no.
And I love him.
It's like, it's a really good, kudos to Horikoshi, because it's like he has Endeavor and he has Bakugo, where it's like you could very easily be like, how do I put it, like,
keep them static.
Yeah.
So,
but he has them like, they both kind of start from similar areas, but he doesn't make them progress in the same way. Is what I'm getting at, because like Endeavor's like, I'm never gonna like that guy. I hate that guy. I like, good for him for getting like, they both have good character development, but that does not mean that they both end up as good characters. I think Bakugo is coming to a place where he could be a good character. Endeavor will not get there.
Yeah, well, Bakugo, they're setting him up to be Vegeta, and that's fine. We love that. We love that protective Vegeta who loves his Bulma. So
Yep.
You know, and I think that's kind of
my Bulma.
Yeah, exactly, and that's why he's so lovable, is because he's a way better husband and father than Goku. Shockingly enough.
Yeah.
Just because Goku lacks the brains.
Yep.
But I think that's kind of what he's prepped the character for, and I love it.
Why are you pushing on my chair?
Because I'm comfortable and I like touching you.
Okay. I gotta do a quick side story here, real quick, about the kind of person that I married. So, she wants to watch The Rings of Power, but I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna go head to bed, and she was like, oh, I guess I'm not gonna watch my show. I was like, you're not gonna watch. I had to sit in the living room and keep myself busy so that she could watch her show.
Because you would have been too far away. You have to think about this. I am clingy, and there's a room with the TV. The next to the room with the TV is the living room where we do like most of our like office and writing things. And then next to that is the bedroom. So like that's like a good 10 feet further than I am comfortable with being. If I'm going to be home with you, I want to be near you. And if you're
you do
gonna
know
just go
that
to
like
bed, I'm just going to go
you
there
do
too.
know that like 15 minutes into the show I went back to the bedroom and then you just didn't notice, right?
No, that was like an hour and a half into the show.
It wasn't.
It was an hour.
It wasn't.
I watched an entire episode and a half before that happened, and I saw you move back, and I went back.
Nope. You were.
I saw you get up and plug your laptop in,
Uh-huh.
and you got up and you unplugged it, and then you got up and you went to your room.
Yep.
That happened after I'd watched an episode and a half, and
It was not an episode. It may have been-
within
it may
10
have been-
minutes, I went back there.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't.
I don't know why he finds this so important to discuss with you guys, but
Like,
here we are.
I'm just like you and Ahsoka both. Like,
Yeah, I'm a German
you
Shepherd
get
at heart.
so-
I get it.
You get so stressed out if like everybody. Okay, you were like tilting my chair and it's making me uncomfortable.
But
No. I'm like, yeah. Ahsoka is like, she will get all up in my business. Like,
with
if I,
context, that's the dog.
that's the dog.
German Shepherd,
The
not
German
the
Shepherd
pug.
dog. No. I've got Ashley Eckstein lives with us.
Done. He just wants to tease me right now.
Oh, like you haven't done the same to me on these podcasts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, these are great podcasts.
Anyway, apparently he needed to tell everyone how clingy I am, and that's fine. I'm putting my foot back on the chair.
I'm about to start poking you.
I will straight up like fart and throw up on you because I'm not feeling great. I'm okay with saying that to these people. Okay, all right. Don't need to kidney shot me right now. Okay.
When have I ever kidney shotted you?
That's what you do when you poke me in the side. That is what that is.
That is not a kidney shot.
That is.
No.
I know you would never hit me. That is the closest thing that you will ever get to a kidney shot. We're gonna move on now.
Okay. So, yeah, Team Applicant wasn't gonna win, but I'm kind of I like the way that they pulled through. Yeah, Team RWBY works together too well. They just unless
They're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah. Go.
Even when they're split up.
Yeah. I think. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, like back around to where Todoroki and Kudai were kind of like talking about how like, well, do they succeed as individuals alone, or can they succeed as a team? And the answer is, they work together very well as a team, but don't sell them short just because they're not functioning, just as like just because they have to split up as individuals, that doesn't mean that they're not doing good.
Yeah. And then what else happened in the chapter? Oh! After the fight, we have the conversation with Bloodshot.
Yeah, where Kudai's where Mina's kind of like, let's go. He's just like, come on, let's go talk to this person. And Kudai's like, I don't want. So again, like back to him being an introvert. He's just like, I don't know this person. Don't make me talk to her.
Yeah.
So like, yeah. We were kind of talking about that earlier in the chapter and earlier in the story, where he's like, I don't want to talk to new people. Don't make me do it. Okay, I don't have any choice. I'm being dragged now.
So the previous chapter kind of set us up for this in a couple of ways. Not only because of the solo versus team player question, which obviously it just needs to be a balance, and then of course going back to the roots because we're not in the midst of an insane battle or like crazy psychological warfare happening.
Mina's just kind of like, I want to make a new friend.
But we see Mina and Kudai being Mina and Kudai in a normal situation when they're not in the middle of insanity.
Yeah.
And like I think it's easy to forget that when they're not like on the job, like what their personalities are like. So I think that's why it's nice to have these little breaks.
Yeah.
And these little like mini filler arcs in anime because you're able to say, okay, let's get back to the groundwork. What are these characters like? Because we're getting so lost in the story that sometimes we can forget personalities and why people do the things they do and why they make the choices they make.
Yeah.
And so it's nice to have that kind of grounding moment of, okay, here's where we are. This is where personalities are at. This is how everyone's feeling right now before we start torturing them again.
Yeah.
Right? So
I mean, yeah, like, honestly, like, a lot of people have some people feel like that
they feel like that.
Sorry, let me back it up for a second. They feel like Shonen relies on tournament or arcs a little bit too much, and I'm like, okay, yeah, you know what? There are definitely Shonen shows and manga where they definitely, like, the tournaments are the only way to show how these characters have progressed with their fighting capabilities. But in this case, it certainly has come across to the point where My Hero is definitely a good one for showing, like, it's not just showing their fighting skills, they're definitely showing how they've come along as people.
And I appreciate that it's not drawn out. Because, like, yes, when this arc came, I was like, really? Come on. I just want the story to move forward. But then I appreciated it, and it wasn't freaking long. Like, Fairy Tail, it's freaking forever. Like, that one, like, or 2 days of tournament or whatever took, like, months and months.
The Grand Tournament?
Games.
Or the Grand Magic Games.
Yeah, that took forever. And not to say that it was a bad arc necessarily, because there was some plot.
They had a lot of stuff. Okay, so Fairy Tail had a lot of stuff going on in the background. Like, they had they had the stuff going on with Jalal and with his guild, and, like, they were trying to figure out, it's like, okay, is Zareth here? Is he not? But with this story, it was like, no, everything was about Class A versus Class B. Yeah. But there were, like, enough characters that we were invested in, like, that we were like, all right, yeah, I'm excited for their match when it comes. When it comes along.
And I think one thing I have to say about the original is I really enjoyed seeing the other classes and their quirks.
Yeah, because, like, you'd seen them as people, but you'd never really seen their quirks in action, except maybe at the summer camp where they were all, like, getting, like, the League of Villains was trying to kill him.
Well, see, that's not even what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the main cast.
Oh.
I'm talking about the other kids at the school.
Oh, like, are we talking about, like, the kids that are, like, outside of the hero course?
Well, yeah, and Class B, I guess.
Class B, oh, okay.
But that's, like, the whole point of this arc, it feels like, to me. Like,
it's given these...
We know what our main cast can do. We've seen them working together plenty.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about, like, the other... I enjoyed, as someone who enjoys character design, seeing all of these characters and their personalities and how they work. It was cool.
Yeah. Oh, man, like, I have nothing but respect for authors that are able to, like, juggle, like, 20, 30, 40 characters.
Yeah.
And do it well. Like, Horikoshi is, like, he juggles 20 characters... like, I'll say, like, 25 characters because you throw the teachers in there too. Yeah. And, like, he utilizes them on a regular basis very well. Like, he brings Class B in every now and again for, like, he brings them in every once in a while to, like, help show other kids that are in this stage of life.
An artist who can mastermind that many things simultaneously is really incredible.
Yeah.
I could not even begin. Because, like, some of the projects Joe's working on with, like, anytime he has a new project with new characters, I'm so lost. And I'm like, who is that again? What? Who's that? What?
And I'll be like, no, they did this one thing this one time, which makes them important here and now and, like, in 10 other different places.
And for me, it's as the reader, I have such a short attention span that it's hard for me to remember these names to begin with. And so it's like I have to read things over and over and over again. Like, there's this book, Brothers Karamazov, and it's this, I think it's a piece of Russian literature. Okay. And there's so many characters that the people, I started reading it, I could not get through it, but the people I know who have read it have had to take, like, hardcore notes on who everyone is and how they're related because there's so many characters. So many of it. And I think the closest thing that I've like right now, because I've for the fourth time, I have started reading the Silmarillion. And
maybe we'll get through it this time.
You know what I'm enjoying right now is there's a lot of free study guides out right now because it's like the hot topic in fiction at the moment. Yeah. And so there's a bunch of like free study guides coming out, and there's currently an audiobook that has like still images with what they're talking about. So I'm able to get an image for a point of reference as, okay, this is the person we're talking about right now. Okay. I remember. Because, you know, not only is it hard for me to remember names, period, even if they're names that I'm familiar with, but when it's in like Elvish and like one of or some strict, because Elvish isn't the only language, a weird Tolkien speak, you know, it's like they're weird things that I can't pronounce to begin with, so my brain is kind of like stumbling over it to begin with, even just hearing it. And so I have a vague understanding of like the sounds of the words, and so there's so many characters that I have to go back and listen to it over and over and over again. And I appreciate having that as a visual artist, even though it's funny because I'm usually more of an auditory learner, but with this particular story, it's much easier for me to have that visual aid to go with it because otherwise I get lost in all of these words that I don't understand. Because, you know, he did not intend to publish it. It was his reference. So he didn't need to write it in a way that would be understandable for other people. So then we have all these strange imaginary words that he came up with that my brain just cannot.
I'm like, like, there's people who will be like, I aspire to be this level of detail, like with J.R.R. Tolkien, and like when he went to, but then they don't want to like actually put the 40 years of work into like writing a reference for themselves and like writing the history book of this world.
Yeah. So
did I say world or realm? I'm not entirely sure.
I don't know. It was something like that. But anyway,
there's something in there.
For me, it's like it's incredible when artists and writers can balance all of these things for the sake of plot consistency. Because I think that's something that, especially with Western storytelling, has just been on the back burner for so many years, is consistency with storytelling, because it's just about making making a cheap buck, creating quick entertainment for people that's forgettable, and that's why we get these same stories over and over and over again. And like there's plot holes everywhere, and then it just becomes a joke. And then for me, I have a hard time sitting down and watching a film with someone when they're sitting there poking fun and asking questions and talking over it, because I want to understand the nature of the story and what the writers intended. Now, if I am not really curious about the movie, I have no problem poking fun and pointing out plot holes, especially when there's a bunch of glaring plot holes. Yeah. But for me, true art, you know, you care and you're intentional.
Art is an explosion!
No, see, okay, here we go. So the art.
If you haven't seen Naruto, you won't get that reference.
The art major in me had that whole idea of intentionality driven into me, because you know, at the end of the day, you can sit there and have this debate about what art is all day long, and then someone can tape a banana to a wall and sell it for millions of dollars, and everyone's like, what the hell is with the banana taped to the wall? It's the intention behind it. Why did that artist do that stupid thing? Whether you like it or not, why did they do it? And so when you're writing all of these stories that have the same, you know, same gaping plot holes, there's no consistency, you're backtracking, nothing makes sense. It's like, it's lazy writing. Yeah. And that's why Western literature and Western, like, shows and movies are often so blah, because it's literally just about making back the money they spent to create it. So it becomes more about fancy effects and crazy action.
It's like,
sex
scenes let's distract from let's like, oh, people aren't taking note of we need to distract from like, oh wait, this story's kind of a hot mess. Here, let's get nominated for visual effects.
Exactly. And so,
as much as we can. Star Wars Episode 9.
Exactly.
I'm not sorry.
So, I'm not sorry either. That was Honestly. Honestly, it was an attempt to fix episode 8.
Yeah. I like...
But anyway, to finish my point before we move on, an author that is intentional about their art, that's when a really good type of storytelling that is memorable is created, because you can go back and, like, even with J.K. Rowling, there's plenty of plot holes and inconsistencies that people have found over time. Yeah. But she was intentional enough that she laid all of these Easter eggs where the reread value is fantastic. Because you're like, oh my gosh, she mentioned X, Y, and Z several books before it was important. And we just thought she was world building and creating this cool place.
It's like, oh wait, this is more important than I thought it was.
It had a purpose. And so that's why, I don't know, it's really cool for me when not only can writers balance all these characters, but all of these plot points in that way. So sorry,
a good example of that is like the Thestrals. Is like, you know, for the first couple of years they're brought there, it's like, oh wow, these carriages are just being drawn magically. Like there's nothing drawing them, and then Harry's like, since when were the carriages being drawn by these creepy half-dead horse things? What am I looking at?
Yeah. So
and then Luna's just like, you're just as sane as I am. I've been able to see them. And he's just like, wait, have these always been here? So like, yeah, it's a good callback.
Mm-hmm. And there's tons of things, and I think that's why her books were so popular with our generation, is that, you know, we were this last generation that was kind of going from non-tech industry to tech, and so we were one of the last generations that really, really valued reading, I feel like. Yeah. And not to say that people don't value reading anymore, but I think it was in a different level because we didn't have smartphones, we didn't have, you know, all these gadgets and all this stuff to keep us entertained, and so reading was so important, and so the reread value was just so important to us as kids, because we couldn't just go on the internet and buy another book or rent another free audiobook from the we had to like wait and go to the library and hope that somebody didn't check out the book that we wanted or beg our parents to take us to the bookstore and let us to buy this book. And so I think that having that reread value was so important, because we were still reading hardcover books. We were not doing digital books, and I don't know.
Yeah,
it's an art that's being lost.
Yeah, I really want, like, even like with these with this fan fiction in particular, like I really want to create a reread value. Like, because just like I feel like that's one of the reasons why I am pacing myself so much with this story. It's just like, okay, when I release something that's so like, it's like, oh, Akabane was the doc. She's like, yeah, my dad is like, when Akabane's talking to Kurai, she's like, she has these reasons for like, yeah, she's like, yeah, I really admire you. You know, you're a big inspiration to me. And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, you know, my dad saved your life, and you know, he told me about how, you know, he sees you lying there missing an arm, and you know, but you wouldn't let that stop you, and you know, my quirk was hazardous to my health. And she tells him, she's like, you know, even before this whole thing happened to you, your quirk was very dangerous for you to use, but you figured out a way to make it good, make good use of it for not only yourself, but to make it good for other people. And she was like, oh, he was like, oh, that's why you seem familiar.
See, and I'm like the typical reader who, because I don't have the mind of an author. At the end of the day, you know, I'm creative, but I don't have that type of mind. I'm the type of reader who never would have picked it up until this very chapter. Then I'd have to go back and reread it. But I know a lot of you guys are really astute and you're really great about like picking things out. But like the whole Stranger Things thing we were talking about today. Yeah. So Joe hasn't seen Stranger Things. I have. We've talked about this before. But when I was watching, and spoiler alert really quick if you haven't seen the most recent season, but I think everyone who's going to watch it has seen it at this point.
Of Stranger Things.
Yeah, of Stranger Things. When the kids go to the roller rink, which, by the way, is the roller rink in our town, which everyone grew up going to. The only one. Anyway, they're there, and that whole day, I understand, like, he had a lot of really complicated feelings regarding Elle and Mike. but I felt like he was being a little overly dramatic. And I was like, I get it. He's going through a lot and it's tough. Poor Will. I feel so sorry for him.
Yeah.
But I felt like he, like, the puppy dog eyes and the long sighs and everything and the eye rolls. I was like, what is with him? Why is he acting like this? I mean, I get that Mike and Elle are not being the best friends right now, but this is a little much from Will because, he's not a super, he's not the kind of character normally who really wears his emotions on his sleeve. And I was like, what is going on with him? I saw someone online, they took a screenshot of the girl or whatever kid was recording the incident at the rink. The date of that incident was his birthday. So literally, not only did his mom not do anything for his birthday,
like she kind of just up and ditched him and didn't give a very good explanation for why.
To be fair, she was worried about Hopper, but he doesn't know this. He's like, wow, my mom just goes on a business trip. Cool. Yep. And meanwile,
he's got his friends coming in.
His best friend, who he hasn't seen in ages, who hasn't been communicating with him because he's just talking to his new adopted sister, who's this girl. Mike's girlfriend is Elle. So he's like, wow. So not only Elle, who's become almost my replacement best friend since Mike hasn't been a good friend to me recently.
Yeah.
They're both completely ignoring me, and it's my birthday, and they're making it all about them.
Yeah.
And I can see. I'm like, okay, I can see that extra because he already had the really complicated feelings going on.
Yeah.
There's that extra layer of emotion, and it's like I never would have noticed that. So I appreciate people who notice these little details.
Yeah.
Because it makes so much more sense to me.
Yeah.
Because
those are
obviously that was on purpose.
Like if I had watched Stranger Things, I probably would have noticed that. You probably
would have noticed that.
But
you have that kind of mind. I never would have thought, let me look at the date on the camera, and then not only that, but let me think back to the episode back in the first or second season where his mom says what his birthday is.
Yeah.
Which that happens, but that's why I appreciate people like you guys, authors who have these things, and it doesn't have to be spoken. Yeah. It's left unsaid because it's an Easter egg for the reader or the viewer to find.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know that this necessarily would have been too much of an does this count as an Easter egg? Because, the characters in the story are like, no, this is how you know each other. This is why this is important.
I still think it's cool because then you think back, oh, wow, I didn't really pay attention. Because for me, personally, I didn't pay any attention to this doctor. Yeah. I was just like, okay, random doctors are working on him. I'm more worried about the character right now that I know.
He was trying to not die, and then, you move along with everybody.
But now there's a context for this doctor who has a name and has a daughter and has a life. And I'm like, oh, wow, there's a whole other character.
And he was like, yeah, he was kind of like, yeah, she goes to the same school as you. And he was kind of like, okay, cool, dude, whatever.
Yeah,
not even whatever. I'm trying not to die.
I'm trying
not
to die.
Yeah, I really, really enjoyed getting to bring this character in. Yeah. Or she has a and it's not. I try not to make it over, but she has this reason for why she's like, yeah, my dad saved your life. She's like, there's this thing there's this common thread that brings them together.
And I think that's one of the beauties of fan fiction too, because you can take these gaps that. It's not that it was a careless gap. It's just not necessarily pertinent to the story at the moment. Yeah. And you can flesh them out. Yeah. A lot of people, and I'm sure I'll get plenty of flack for this, but a lot of people hate Rings of Power because there's certain points that are not true to what Tolkien would want. And there's certain parts that, because they do not have rights to the source material of the Silmarillion, they can't just redo that. And so they're having to take all of these gaps, which Tolkien was so over the top with fleshing out his lore. It is hard to find gaps.
Yeah.
But what these authors did is they found some gaps that had not been fleshed out, and they're fleshing them out. And I appreciate that. And I have to I can't look at it as the purist, like, this is Tolkien, which, again, I know plenty of purists who love the Lord of the Rings movies that came out when we were kids. There's plenty of things in those movies that are not true to Tolkien's work, so don't get me started there. Yeah. If you're going to be a purist, you shouldn't even like those movies.
Fair enough.
But I have to look at it as a fan fiction, and that's the beauty. You can take these little empty points, and it's not that it's a plot hole. It's not a plot hole. It's just something that the author never fleshed out, and you can take it and be creative like it. It's almost like a drawing prompt.
Yeah.
When you're in elementary school and your teacher walks by and scribbles on your paper and asks you to turn it into something, that is the same. It's the same idea.
Do you think, like, if you were, like, not married to me, like, if you did not, like, come to appreciate, like, what it is, what I do with the stories that I enjoy and that I do fan fictions of, do you think you would have enjoyed the Rings of Power quite as much?
I don't think so.
No.
I really don't, because I think that, at least culturally with the people that I know, fan fiction's like, oh, that's really weird that you would waste your time on something like that that's not even like by the real author. It's like this very like hoity-toity, like, why would you do this?
Yeah.
And you know, if I didn't, you know, when you first started writing fan fiction, I was like, okay, that's cute, but like, you're not going to get money for it, so what's the point? You know, and I had this bad attitude about it because that's all that I was surrounded with. And then, you know, as I grew as a person and as an artist, I realized, oh my gosh, it's literally the same as me, you know, being angry at my art teacher because she wouldn't let me draw existing characters or things that existed. You know, as an artist, I needed to experience reproducing art that I liked by other people in my own way. Even though I didn't have rights to it intellectually, I couldn't sell it. You know, but as an artist, I needed to experience creating things that I liked so that I could know how to move on and be original. And that is what fan fiction is. You are taking a template that is really cool and you're practicing it, and you're figuring out not only how the mechanics of that thing you like work, but how to start adding your own flair and changing it. And so it isn't until you're able to practice that you're able to create. And I think that process is something that people don't appreciate because you know, we live in this society of instant gratification, and it's like, you work out hard enough, you get good at it, right? You don't have to think about, okay, I'm gonna go back and memorize old plays from old games so that I can be a better strategist in my sport. We're more like, get strong, go hard, do what your coach says, right? That's a sports reference. But, you know, I think historically, because before we had this fast-paced culture, people had the opportunity to slow down and really enjoy and appreciate art or sports or whatever it was. And so the craft itself was important, and it was something that took years to hone. And I think because there's these authors, which, you know, no shame, they can just crank out and publish these incredible novels just back to back, and because they have the back of these publishing companies, they can just get instant, like, you know, feedback, and they can get money, and they get that name that, you know, they get published. You know, it's hard as someone who wants to be a storyteller, and it's like it doesn't just happen. It takes years of work. It's the whole social media thing where you see an artist post something that's incredible, and you're like, wow, I can't do that. You realize, oh, okay, that artist did not just sit down and do that in one day for Inktober. They probably spent weeks and weeks on it throughout the entire year, and they're just posting them throughout Inktober. To, you know, that's I don't know if you guys know what Inktober is. It's an art prompt for artists where you have a different prompt each day of the month. And what I've practiced it the last couple of years, and there's been some years where I have been true to it and done one sketch per day, but the years where my art is really nice is when I take several days to think about it and to plan it before I do the drawing. And we see this curated picture of like people's published works, and we think, oh wow, it just comes easy to them and they just crank them out and they make millions. Not fair, right? But in reality, it does take years and years of trial and error and honing that skill, because it is a skill. Practice. It is a skill at the end of the day. So no, that was a good question, because I think that, you know, and I feel bad that I didn't embrace the fan fiction community the way that I do now when we were younger. And I appreciate Joe for being patient with me and not giving up on you guys, and still just loving this art, because I've come to appreciate it too.
like I think this might be one of the first podcasts for you actually to have more to say on the subject than I do. So this is interesting to me.
Well, I think I've had a lot to think about with the whole Rings of Power, because I don't know if you guys remember, because when they first announced Rings of Power, I was very like, I don't want to watch it. I don't have much interest. And then I found out they were hiring an intimacy coordinator, and I was like, oh crap, it's going to be just another Game of Thrones. I don't want to see it. And then all of a sudden, like, a good friend of mine who's like super clean cut and does not like watch anything sketchy, like liked it. And I'm like, what? And I was like, okay, my friend genuinely enjoyed this. Like, she went, because her friend is a hardcore Tolkien fan, she went to theaters and watched the first 2 episodes, and she was like, it was like watching an original Tolkien movie, and it was so cool. And I was like,
interesting.
Really? Because I had no interest in watching it. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to give it a chance. And that's the, I don't care. I'm sure there's going to be plenty of things that don't align with Tolkien's original plan.
Vision.
But I'm sure that Joe's story doesn't align with the vision of the original authors of any of these stories.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because that is art. You take, there's 20 million memes taking Michelangelo's art and turning it into Homer Simpson or whatever, right? That's the point. You get ideas from other artists, you get inspired by other artists, and then you just go for it while you're honing your skill. Then once you get that practice and that recognition, you can start diving into knowing what you like. And like, as an art teacher, that's the main thing that I try to do with my big kids.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do cookie cutter art where everyone's doing the same thing anymore. I'll do that when they're little, when they're learning skills, they're gaining strength in their hands, they're learning how to draw a line without having, wiggles and shakes. And it's hard because they're developing those skills, and they're developing, the patience mentally and emotionally to get through a drawing, right? And I have to build up their confidence and their strength mentally. But then once they're big and they know how to do it, it's about finding what they like and where to go. So it's actually really hard. It's much, much harder teaching the kids who are better artists, because then I have 20 kids who are like, well, miss, I want to draw King Kong. I want to draw Goku, but I don't know how to get his hair right. I want to draw like whatever skin from Fortnite, but I just can't figure it out. So I'm running around trying to help all these kids, because they have the skills, and they're trying to figure out what they like and where to go with it.
Yeah.
So it's much more open-ended, and that's what it should be for artists, right? You're building those muscles, and then stretching
your legs, so to speak,
and discovering where your niche is in that art, and then in that field.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, that's. Yeah. No, I'm glad that you've been able to do all these to draw these comparisons. Like, that's something that I really like seeing. But anyways, man, you rail on me for going on
sorry, that was a
holes.
massive tangent. That was a 20-minute tangent, guys. I'm so sorry.
It wasn't 20 minutes, was it?
It was 17 minutes, because I looked.
Nice.
I looked at the time when I thought we were going to be done, and I just went on a total rant. Sorry about that, guys.
That's funny. But, I mean, yeah, so...
If they listened to the end, I will be impressed, and I appreciate you. I don't I don't know that we're that interesting, but hopefully that was an interesting conversation, because it was for me.
I mean, but I hope that I didn't disappoint you guys in the sense that, like, I didn't go through and cover, like, the fights that happened in the anime just with Kurai commentating on it. But he was able to throw in his 2 cents on the stuff that I thought he would. The stuff that I thought mattered.
And again, just like anything, when he's skipping through, it's like, it probably, if you have questions, it probably, and he skipped it, probably is just like the original, and he didn't change it.
For the most part, yeah.
So.
Yeah. So I'm glad that. Excuse me.
Yeah. So I know sometimes these little side arcs can be a little slow, and hopefully people are. Hopefully it was just a weird week, and people were just did get a chance to.
I think that's more or less what happened.
And I'm also sure it will pick up again when you get back into the meat of the story. So
yeah, I'm hoping, but you know what? I mean, I'm really hoping we get a lot of reviews. I mean, for the net, because the cliffhanger that I have planned for the next chapter. Oh man. You guys are gonna get two episodes, 2 chapters. There's gonna be 2 chapters of Kurai's team versus Monoma's team. And oh boy, I am fairly confident in myself and my skills that I will have prepared a couple of chapters that you guys will enjoy, because I've built up this antagonism between Monoma and Kurai for so long, like a year and a half at this point, I think, if not longer. I think you guys will truly enjoy it. Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it too, because I genuinely can't remember how it goes.
You don't?
I genuinely cannot remember.
You don't remember?
I don't. I really don't. So I'm actually looking forward to it.
You're in the same boat as these guys.
I am, because it's been a while. Because, like, you know, you were first coming up with these outlines and, you know, bits and pieces of chapters. And I know that I heard plenty, but I know you fleshed it out a lot since you last read it to me, too. So it's been so long and so much else has been added to the story for me that I just don't remember. So I'm looking forward to it as well. So I will be surprised with you guys. I'm sure my memory will be refreshed shortly, but... yeah. Anyway, hey. Thank you guys. If you listened this far, wow, thank you. And we'll but I thought it was a solid conversation.
I did too.
But I certainly did too. I hope you guys have a good week or 2 weeks, and we'll see you soon.
Like, okay, so that's what I was gonna like. False stop hat. I enjoyed kind of that end bit where Bakugo kind of comes up to Kurai before he can leave, and Kurai's just kind of like, all right, what's this guy gonna say? And Bakugo's just like, dude, and Bakugo's just like, kick his teeth in.
Yeah, I appreciated that too. I forgot about that.
I appreciated that, and then also to do with Bakugo. The other thing was that when Bakugo did his thing where he led the others to victory, and everybody's like, "Wow, that's crazy! That's crazy that he did that." And Kurai's just kind of watching. He's kind of got the smile on his face, and he's like grabbing his arm, and he's kind of grabbing his arm, and he's kind of like, you know, he's like, well, he's like at least something good came out of this.
Oh, my heart.
Yeah. And like, because he's never gonna hit a place where he's like, yeah, it's a good thing that I got a robot arm.
Yeah.
But he has come to a spot where he's like, okay,
well, it wasn't good for somebody.
It did some good for somebody else.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what he's been trying to do for a while. You know, he's been like, you know, as a hero, he's trying to do good for others around him. And if his sacrifice did something good for Bakugo, of all people, you know, he'll take it. He'll take it. And Mina's the one that kind of puts into words. She's like, I think the price was too high, but I'm glad that it turned out all right.
Yeah, the good is coming from it.
The good is coming from it. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Well, I'm very interested to see what you guys have to say about that and the way that the fight ended and what you think about the fight that's going to be coming on. I'm sure Silly Kira will be exceptionally excited. I can already hear him in the distance yelling at me because he didn't get to see the start of Kurai versus Monomo, but them's the breaks.
All right, my friends.
For this, all right, so now I will say, I hope you guys have a good couple of weeks until we see you for the next one. Stay plus ultra. Do you have to do that every time? Every time?
I don't do it every time.
I feel like you.
No, I don't. I feel like this is the first time I've ever done it. Please, okay, just turn it off.
That is not the first time that you've done that.
It's too late. I don't remember. I have no memory of this.
All right, guys. Well, we will see you later. Plus ultra to the next one.